And just like that, we're already at the last stretch of 2021. Do you know what that means? It's about time we start seeing rankings of some of the best and worst experiences released for the public to see. And for today, in particular, we'll be tapping into the gaming community since we're sharing with you a list of the 10 worst Steam games of all time to avoid. So if you're curious to know what's on this list, well, keep on watching. Let's look at 10 of the worst Steam games of all time to avoid. Today's list of games is ranked through their movement, title, date, tags, platform, and price, and it's derived from Steam250.com's Hall of Shame, where fans participated in a poll and voted what they thought was the worst. Here are the results of the said poll and the Steam games you need to avoid at all costs. At number 10, we have Sacred 3. Starting today's list of worst Steam games is none other than the hack and slash Sacred 3, released back in 2014. Yep, its name couldn't get any simpler nor boring than that. And if there's one thing worse about games other than being bad, it's how they're mediocre, in which Sacred 3 falls under. Sacred 3 is an action RPG role-playing game developed by Deep Silver. It revolves around the world of Ancaria, where a new shadow is cast after decades of peace. Now the clans need to work together and join forces from across the land to fight for their world's survival and safety. You can buy this game for $14.99, but then again, we're here to say it ain't worth the price. But if you're looking for a good laugh, then this may be it. A typical fantasy hero game where the fate of the world rests in your hands. We have to admit, though, that the several players played Sacred 3 for laughs, since the script and storyline are a bit all over the place. The narration from both friends and foes is uncalled for, with sexual innuendos and chatter that are pretty cringeworthy. As for the characters, you only get to choose from 4 different characters, which you couldn't even customize as you progress in the game, and you know what else it does come with? Basic gameplay, where you can either just start your campaign on your own or join with 3 others online. Next is GODUS. Coming next in the 9th spot today is the God game genre GODUS, launched back in September 2013. Designed by Peter Molyneux and developed by 22 Cans, it is a single-player and multiplayer game where the player takes on the persona of a god who starts with 2 followers and will use his power and influence to shape and sculpt the land as they please. So conflict will arise soon when you encounter the followers and eventually the god personas of other players. Various game review sites have given it a low rating for different reasons, whether in regards to its touch controls, your followers' knack for choosing the most ridiculous destinations, and its slow gameplay. If you don't believe us, then you're free to try it yourself, since GODUS is available for purchase on Steam for $7.49, but we did warn you. Up next, Rollercoaster Tycoon World. Ranked 8th on today's list is Atari's Rollercoaster Tycoon World, a simulation game released in 2016. It's a series of simulation strategy games that involve the construction and management of an amusement park and is focused on roller coasters. The goal is to build 10 different roller coasters with an excitement rating of at least 6, so the player has to make use of the scenery, terrain, and draft your own design to your advantage. To think building captivating scenery plays a huge portion of the construction of the rides, it did pretty badly in the visuals department, and more so in the performance aspect, which gives a rather unpleasant experience for a roller coaster ride, to say the least. Of course, pathways are important in this game, which is why it made us wonder why the pathfinding system in the game suffers a lot of problems. Not only is it difficult to find, but the grid snapping system is also a nightmare to use and produces wonky paths that are unsightly to see from above. At number 7, Gasp. Continuing with the list, on the 7th spot, we have the adventure game Gasp, which was released in 2015 by Dark Day Interactive. In this space game, you take control of a lone astronaut who has just landed on an unknown planet's surface away from the rest of the crew. The goal of the game is for you to find the rest of your members. With more extensive work, this game could have been a hit, but of course it wouldn't make it to today's list if the negative rating of this game isn't pretty high. Of course, simply walking around and exploring the area is not much of a challenge, so now and then your suit leaks oxygen at random times, and make sure to avoid falling debris from asteroid strikes. There's not much to see other than the flat surface of the planet, and there isn't even any background music, just the sound of your breathing. And if you ever get off course and fail to meet your members, you die. Simple and boring as that. Up next, Identity. And now we're nearing the upper half of the worst games on Steam. In the 6th spot, we have the MMORPG Identity, released in November 2018, not to be confused with Identity 5. This adventure game introduces a new breed of large-scale multiplayers where hundreds of players interact in a world of absolute freedom. So based on what you do, the fate of the world is entirely up to you. The location takes place in a fictional land somewhere in the eastern United States and drew heavy inspiration from Georgia and the Carolinas. Games such as these, without proper limits, can end up messy and chaotic. To call the lack of organization and goals in the game boring is even an understatement. So we understand how the game received a low rating. Next at number 5 is Space Base DF9. At the 5th spot, we have Space Base DF9, which is a space simulator game developed by Double Fine Productions. In it, you are tasked with several objectives, from building a room that gradually escalates to a bigger task. It had the potential to be big, but leave it to poor management for mishandling the production production and development stages of the game for it to flop. The game didn't amass enough money to continue development, so they just decided to roll with the alpha and call it the 1.0 coupled with the basics before abandoning it altogether. Next up on the list is Kinetic Void. Another space adventure game that makes it to today's list is Kinetic Void. Just like Space Base, Kinetic Void shares similar objectives where the player is focused on customization and exploration where they can work alone or with others online. With multiple galaxies to choose from, it's a bit overwhelming in the sense that there's a lot of things you could do, but underwhelming also since you can't do much. So yes, the game is pretty much a paradox in itself. That's why it received a low rating. Up next, Uriel's Chasm. Coming up in the third spot is Uriel's Chasm, which many would argue is more of an experience rather than a game. Probably the best way we could describe Uriel's Chasm is that it pushes the boundary for games, and it could get pretty uncomfortable, but for those who have a penchant for indie games, then you might take a liking to this one. At number 2, we have Flat Out 3, Chaos and Destruction. Running second on today's list is Flat Out 3, Chaos and Destruction. The 360 controllers added to the already chaotic way of driving in the game, and if you think using the keyboard will be a better option, it doesn't, and only highlights the unrefined handling models. Try controlling a speeding vehicle that's going a little too fast than the regular. Overall, the limited ability to control the characters what makes this game aggravating rather than enjoyable for most of us. And now at number 1, we have eFootball 2022. Topping today's list of the worst Steam games of all time is, drumroll please, eFootball 2022. Released just last September of this year, eFootball 2022 is a simulation game of the sport developed and published by Konami and is a free-to-play game after being completely rebranded from the original Pro Evolution Soccer series to the eFootball series. The game has become infamous in the community for its ridiculously low and negative reviews, sketchy online play, and just downright disastrous. Starting the game, you're in it at the rawest version that eventually patches up in the future, and the game offers a premium player pack which you can buy for £31 on Steam. Buying this premium pack will give you in-game currency and chance deals, which aren't available in general, but are planned for future updates. The free version of the game gives you 9 licensed domestic clubs to play exhibition games with, and another 4 from Series A teams and Zenit St. Petersburg, which can be selected for the Partner Club's online challenge mode only, as well as the Portugal and Argentina national squads, who only make an appearance in the game's tutorial. And that's pretty much it. There's a whole load of work needed to be done for this game to improve, and hopefully eFootball 2022 will rise to the challenge and give the people what they want. And that sums up today's episode about the 10 worst Steam games of all time. Have you played any of these games before? Thanks for watching.